Hello, my friend. I'm back again. Fuck yeah, Cincinnati! We're not in Cincinnati, are we? I'm back, Spencer. You know what I mean by that?
No, I don't.
I've been writing.
Yeah?
And it's been going good.
Good.
And I've been reading. And you know what? I don't know if that correlates, but it's been going great. I've been working through the Lord of the fucking Rings, man. And it's pumping me up now. I'm getting...
And so you got to be close to being done on that, right?
Yeah, I've been like reading a chapter a night. And they're pretty long chapters, so that's an accomplishment. But I've been reading, and I've been writing, and also still been reading the Oblivion and some other stuff. But I am very excited because I managed to get through that sickness and that slump I was in. That it was actually only like a week and a half of just like shit writing. But I powered through that. I hurt my back this week trying to squat 500 pounds. So
Baby weight.
So I have been feeling like I can't really go to the gym and work out super hard this week. So even though I've been going to the gym, I just haven't been doing like any intense workouts. So that means I'm not as tired. So that means more writing. So that's actually like a bonus. Surprise. Because usually I'm like fucking by the time I get home, I'm so tired I don't want to do anything. But lately I've been having a little extra energy because I can't just destroy my body and my emotions in the gym. I have to do that through the pen, which is different.
Yeah.
Welcome? I don't know. I don't like to feel things, man. I haven't actually gotten into any feelings yet in this book, so I might never get to the feelings. How about you, sir?
No.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, you had a bout of illness that was hopefully unrelated to my illness.
Yeah, I don't think it was related to you. But yeah, after, I had a few days off because I had a procedure I was getting done. And then even
you're supposed to say you did a stint in the hospital to make people feel like, oh my God, is he okay? And you never elaborate.
Yeah.
Like you make a Facebook post with just a picture of you in the hospital and everybody's like, what's happened? Oh my God. And you never reply.
Not even that, just a shot of the wrist, the thing around the wrist.
Like, I hate that. Go on.
Were you in the hospital or was you just giving blood? What doing blood work? Like, what's going on?
You fucking jerk. Go on.
And then so I gave myself even like the day afterwards, I felt fine, but I was still gonna just like give myself that that day because like before that with where because I had to work a whole bunch of days in a row, and then I was like watching my brother and his wife's house and dog while they were away and stuff like that, and then so the next day I even had my yellow pad notebook.
Oh shit, that's serious. We got the yellow legal pad out.
Well, because remember I was telling you I was kind of like lost in that middle thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'm gonna try to at least try to come up with maybe some bullet point, just something to kind of get me through the dock a little bit, to something to like aim to. And so like that day I had that ready, and then that was whenever the head pains and sickness started coming in, and then
which you probably got from the hospital.
I almost was kind of thinking that
most likely that's where you got it.
And then I've been back to work the past couple of days, and then the murder rages have been severe, and then
I recommend reading some fun, light-hearted Tolkien to get you through the grievous period, and that'll get you back on your high horse.
Maybe.
Perhaps. A swift Shadowfax. So, my writing's going good. Your writing is hot dog shit.
Hot dog. No, it's like crusty dog shit.
The white dog shit that's been baking in the sun for a while.
Yes.
Ooh, doesn't even have a smell anymore. That's not good. But there is an upside.
Yeah.
This is the official 100th episode of the DPW Drunken Pen Writing Podcast.
That we've been putting off for like a month and a half.
Yeah. Does that make it like DC Comics when I do that DPW Drunken Pen Writing? Because, DC Comics is Detective Comics. Like, if you say like it's stupid. Anyway, so we have new intro music that we are going to play. And I would like people to tell us if they like it or if they love it. Or I guess if you don't like it, you can tell us that too. I'm probably I played around with it on old episodes, just threw it in instead of our regular music to see if it fit.
Yeah.
And I like it personally. So, listeners, let us know. But wasn't that nifty?
Nifty, so nifty.
If you're just joining us, which I don't know why you'd skip to 5 minutes into the episode or whatever it is, this is the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. Holy cow. Holy moly. I forgot to go to the Globe.
Oh my.
How could I forget
For the
to go
100th episode.
for the 100th episode? I forgot to go to the Globe, and I'm already sitting. So what do I do, Spencer? I'm gonna bring up a Globe on my phone.
Yeah, I'm
gonna go. Fuck it, technology. I'm gonna use Google Earth, Spencer.
I'm surprised that we haven't just started using like a random like map generator kind of thing. You know, just
Laziness is what it is. Pure, unadulterated laziness. Ooh, but I got Google Earth on my phone, and it's fancy. So, I got to zoom out. I got to zoom hard. Oh, there we go. Look at this. Look at it. I got the globe. I'm spinning the globe. Yeah, I wish I had this on film because you see that film.
Keep spinning and spinning and spinning.
1970s 8mm film. Like, what are you talking about? That's Antarctica. All right, I'm zooming. I landed? I don't know what fucking continent that even is. We're zooming.
Zoom.
A name's got to pop up at some point.
Zoom.
This is like as close to the edge as we're gonna get on me coming up with a name on the spot.
Yeah,
I'm in a fucking forest. Well, that's no good.
Which I would think you'd be able to find. We could find more names because like you can only fit so much on a globe. You know.
Yeah, I'm like in a river now. I need to.
Well, it could be a river, right? That's the name of something.
Okay, that's a different name. Okay. I'm Caleb James. With me, as always, is Spencer, the Saquonay Spinach Sticker Church. I don't know. The Saquonay Suture Stitcher. I don't like Saquonay.
That's weird.
Oh, here's a better one right next to it.
Okay.
Fucking Tremblay. How about Tremblay? I don't even know what country I'm in. So, with me today, Spencer, the Tremblay Titty Toucher Church.
Oh,
that's gentle. Hold on, I want to zoom out to see what state or country. Quebec. I'm in Canada.
Oh, there you go.
Quebec.
Oh, Canada.
Oh, man, you could have just been. I think you're already Quebecian at one point.
Yeah.
The Quebecian quacker or something.
I think it was something else. So.
As you notice, I had the other computer connected.
I did.
Why would that be?
I don't.
For our 100th episode, I pulled all the strings I could. Used all the contacts in my book, which is not an actual book. But all the contacts I know to get us a special guest, Spencer. And this guest is a best-selling author.
Yeah.
This guest is one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Mr. Stephen King could not be here today. So I actually don't have a guest. But I did think of something that I thought would be interesting. We could listen to the actual intro of our very first episode.
Oh, yeah?
Let's bring it back.
Are we just gonna do like a commentary?
We could try. Let's just see. This is rough. Actually, I think I went back and did I don't know what the actual beginning of this is.
Cuz we could replay it, and when one of us want to say something, we raise our hand and then we stop it.
All right, so this is the first episode of the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast at our Knights of the Round. It wasn't a round table. It was a long, shitty, broken, antique, wobbly table where you were in the corner against a cold window
and a counter.
And I was in the open, and we always had Apache helicopters overhead.
I do kind of miss the helicopters.
Very humble beginning. So, folks, if you don't want to listen to that first episode, you can.
But very fitting that, as in those early episodes, with this episode, we have a nitro underneath the table.
We do have a nitro underneath the table. My dog is still under the table, which is usually he's not allowed down here when we podcast, but he's been acting up when Mindy's not home and you come here and he's like, I want to go down there. But he just wants to lay down, so we let him. So no further ado, this might be terrible.
Might be.
Hey there, folks. This is the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I sound like a kid. In today's episode, we go over exactly who we are, why we write, what got us into writing, and why you should write too. I must admit, I am a little inebriated right now, but nowhere as I was when we recorded this episode. So I thank you for listening, and forewarning, there is strong language ahead. Oh boy. Enjoy. Strong language. Might be the last time we hear this music. Look, I don't know, you can't see. I had fucking words and stuff come up on the screen. Hello, folks. Welcome to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host and the Drunken Pen Writing Editor-in-Chief, Caleb James. With me today is my co-host and the Associate Editor of Drunken Pen Writing, Spencer Church. Hello. The associate
Today, this
editor.
is our inaugural episode, so I decided we would discuss why we write and why you should write. Because after all, that's what we're all about. Now, what are we drinking? What do you got there, Spencer?
What's the name of this that we're
I don't remember how long we followed
Got
up
a
on this
fine
dumb shit.
Highland Park 12
Not
Viking
long.
Honor Edition.
Anything Vikings worth drinking on, you know.
That was my reasoning behind buying it. A single malt Scotch whiskey at 43% alcohol by volume. Now, I'm not much of a Scotch.
What are we like recording in like a subway station?
It sounds like we're in like a, I don't know, an old tunnel. We're like in a abandoned storm drain.
we're podcasting with fucking Pennyworth the fucking clown down in the sewers.
Fucking really, Pennyworth?
Or Pennywise.
Oh, god damn it. You got Batman on the brain still.
Yeah.
I like how my editing skills were so superb that I left in the giant clang from one of us hitting the microphone.
We dropped the fucking titles pretty early on. After how
Yeah.
we haven't really
I don't know how many episodes we did this stupid drink segment. I don't think it was very
No.
long. One or two maybe.
more than two. It was mostly you too, because I'm not even like a huge
Yeah.
drinker myself. You're the alcoholic, so
Yeah, I know.
now you're just sparkling waters.
Let's just listen a little more. I've had a rough week. Shut up.
Scotch guy normally. I'm more of a bourbon and sometimes a rye fan, but you can't go wrong with a good Scotch.
It doesn't make you feel fancy drinking it. Like,
Oh, you have the nice little tulip crystal glasses and
the only thing we're missing are like huge cigars. Like,
yeah, need gigantic cigars, but that'll probably turn to blunts, and before you know it, we got a Rastafarian vibe going on.
All right, I'm going to fast forward to a random spot. Because we actually do have some stuff to talk about today, but this is too fun to listen. Like, it sounds so bad. Like, I can't believe anybody listened to that first episode continued.
Right?
I don't know why I allowed this to be. But it must have been like when you look at old videos you took on like a fucking cell phone from 2008 or something. You're like, oh my God, I thought that was so good. It's so shitty looking now.
bad. And instead of going that way, they
Just
did
change it up,
this.
yeah.
And like, you know, next thing you know, you got your next short story or something like, you know, or
Well,
like
that's why I always think it's fucking asinine when you get people that scoff, oh, I don't ever watch TV. It's like, well, what do you do exactly? Well, I don't watch TV, I don't watch movies. Or even the people that, I just read books. Well, that's cool and all, but...
All right, we had very, very sophisticated commentary. So that was the Two Guys, One Cup podcast, right?
Yep.
I like to think we have come a long way since then.
I'd hope so.
We've got better mics at least.
Yeah.
We have a studio now.
It would at least sound better.
Not the old subway station
Yeah.
we were in. It was like really like that was such a big kitchen space, which was weird.
Mhm.
Like it was just so open. I do wish I could have pointed out a Apache helicopter because I think in the very first episode it even shows up. I swear every episode we recorded, that fucking thing came in right in the middle of like a hot topic or something. So that's fun. But I want to talk about something more important today, Spencer, and that is
yeah.
size,
Size?
length, girth. How important are these things?
Weight.
Ooh, weight, heftiness.
Yeah.
Will it fit on the bookshelf? I'm talking about book size,
is,
folks.
Is it hard to hold?
Ooh, in both hands, or can you put it on your knees? Because it's so heavy, you have to hold it with like
You need a stand.
supported. Sorry, I got a creepy image. Yeah, I think book size is one of those things that most writers really, unless they're actually like working for a publisher or somebody who says, hey, this book needs to be this long. I think it's a thing most writers don't generally think about. At least I never do. I never go, oh, the book I'm writing, like I have a goal. It's like, I would like it to be about 90,000 words, some, estimate. But I never go into it like this book needs to be exactly this. And I have to either pad the count or I have to cut stuff to fit. Like I know, same with stories. Like short stories, if I'm submitting somewhere, obviously you're going to have to hit a word count.
Yeah.
So you work towards that and keep that in the parameters. But like even stuff on the site, a lot of times we're like, okay, we're going to hit, it can't be more than 5,000 words. Spencer, this story is 15,000 words. So, all right, it's going up. We don't have to be,
just break it up.
make it a serialized story. When you're actually in the publishing world, because if you're an indie author, this might not be as important either. But there's certain things, like say you're a fantasy writer. If you're writing epic fantasy, how many epic fantasies are 250 pages?
Not many, I would assume.
No. Oh, the dog farted. Oh, dude. Oh, because my blanket's on. It went up on through the blanket. Come on, brah. You get that sour ass. So, yeah, if you're writing an epic fantasy, it can't be like 250 pages. I mean, it can, I guess, but like...
Well, how many pages are the Lord of the Rings? Like, how many pages are each one of those books?
Technically, it's only one book, which is like 1,200 pages or so, maybe more, depending on like how the edition and stuff. But each individual book is still probably 400 or 500 pages. I would think.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 of them, so they equal.
I guess it's because you got those little things, so I wasn't exactly sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like those little pocket editions I have, that's hard to judge those because the font's really small in those. But even so, that's still fucking, they're pretty girthy for how little they are. If you go into things like sci-fi, depending on the sci-fi, a lot of people want smaller sci-fi. So now, 200, 250 page book, something that's around 50,000 words, 60,000 words, that might be preferred.
Yeah. Well, and also, too, I think that also depends on the style. If you're going
epic space opera or something.
That or just like if you're going like hard sci-fi, it's going to be bigger because you're going to need that space to explain how, how the stuff works or what it is, what the science is. But if it's just like more of a general, like, this is what it is, that's how it works, I'm not getting into it. You don't need to, you know what I mean? You save yourself some space.
I would recommend anyone that's trying to get an agent or something and they already have most likely if you have a book you're working on versus one that's already finished, maybe look into that specific genre and just see what the general average length of these books are that sell, like the best-selling list. And try to stick with that. That way you just don't have to go through the muddy bullshit of like, oh, the agent really likes your book and we can sell it, but we need you to cut, this much shit, or we need you to add this much, or break it up. And like you might not have to go through that if you just hit those specific numbers, in the first write-up of it. Like if you think about things like Westerns and stuff, like there's certain genres where it's usually short, and especially now with like people's attention spans and stuff, I feel like books have just gotten shorter for the most part. But if you're writing literary fiction, for example, like that could be any size, really. Like when you go into writing something, do you generally think about how long you want it to be, or you just think about, because I think about the plots, and where I have like writing this book, I will say I have focused more on like how big is this chapter gonna be.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I feel like, oh, this chapter is going a little too long. I need to end this because like you and me, we when we read something, like you mentioned a lot of times, like, oh, it's nice to have a short chapter in there to break it up. But like sometimes you get stuck with this really long chapter in a book you're reading. You're like, what the fuck? Is this ever gonna end? And
it could be good, but it's just like I gotta go to bed or
it can take you out of the story.
Yeah. No, it's kind of more like you were saying. With this the new thing that I'm working on that I'm stalling out on, I've just been kind of trying to focus just like chapter by chapter.
Yeah.
And however long the chapter is, I have kind of or I did have ideas of like, this is kind of what I want to happen in this chapter. So however long that's going to be, I do try to at least, I want to hit like somewhere between like 1,000 to 1,500 words, just because I feel like in the end that will make it closer to like a novelette size than like a short stories with a whole bunch of like breaks in it. You know what I mean? A lot of stuff that I have been reading, I've just been doing short stories, so I haven't really came up with anything or tried to tackle anything like super big yet. So
girth.
Yeah.
One thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is just the formatting issues you might have going into a book. Because like this is my first actual novel I'm tackling. Like I've started and stopped many times, but this is like the first one have good progress and stuff with. Even going into this, I tried to plot it out. Like this is how many chapters it's going to be, and I'm already off of that. But I'm like, how many chapters should this be? And then how long should the chapters be? Because I like books that are generally, like you said, 1,500. For me, I'm fine if it goes up to 3,000 words a chapter. Like that's a good length. And then that way too, if you have this many chapters, most likely you're going to hit the 90,000 to 110,000 words and you'll be all right. And that's generally the kind of book length I enjoy too. I don't mind short books that are like 50,000 words or whatever, but I feel like, That's like the sweet spot, that 90 to 150 or 110, 115,000 words. Once you get beyond that, then you start getting into like the big epic doorstops and shit, which fantasy seems to be riddled with.
And then what we've been saying, like how like just this year alone, like we've each read like a decent amount of like crime or noir,
Which are always shorter.
Yeah, like I mean, like how many words do you think Devil in a Blue Dress was?
I don't know. What was that, like 250 pages or something?
Something like that, like at the most.
I wouldn't think that was more than 70,000 words.
But yeah, because I mean, and it was even a smaller, like thinner paperback. That would have more. Like I think the longest a chapter was maybe like 10 pages.
Yeah,
at the most.
I feel like
most of them were maybe like 5 to 6.
I feel like crime noir is better suited as shorter. I think mystery, I wouldn't say long, but it could be a bit longer. It'd be longer than crime noir if you have a good mystery going on. Now that's where you start to get into the weeds a little bit because, like, Devil in the Blue Dress is a mystery. A lot of those stories are mysteries, but they're not the same. Like crime noir is more of like an action, atmospheric type of fiction, whereas like an Agatha Christie kind of mystery. Then again, I guess a lot of those are pretty short, aren't they? I had never really read a lot of mystery growing up, so I can't really judge the length of them. But I guess a lot of classic mystery falls into the crime noir shorter side. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if you have a longer mystery, it take you out and get kind of boring. The main mystery I ever read, like growing up, was Sherlock Holmes stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the length of those. Because of the style of writing and stuff, it just feels like it might be longer than it is, so I can't really judge it. I have to go look. I want to go back to fantasy for a second, though, because that's what always throws me off is why can't we have... I understand the epics. Okay, if you're going to have an epic, that makes sense that it's going to be longer. But why can't we just have regular fantasy, like the Michael Moorcock stuff, where most of those books are around the 250-page mark? Like, why can't we have shorter fantasy? Why does everything have to be so long now? Because I think in like the 80s and 90s, all of a sudden, fantasy had to be doorstops. Like Harry Potter and stuff. Like each one of those is a fucking doorstop. Like, why do these have to be so big?
Well, I don't know about the Harry Potters, but I think in the fantasy, a lot of times, I think they're bigger because at least now, the market, that's kind of what those people want to read.
The world building, they want the series.
Or they just want those big, that big thick, that big book, Well,
when's the last time? Let me ask you this: when's the last time you read a contemporary short story, like a fantasy short story?
Oh.
Not an old one, because I have like classic collections of old fantasy, because back then they wrote a lot of fairy tale short stories, things like that were fantasy, but a contemporary, I'm sure there's magazines and stuff, but I would really be interested.
Yeah, that's a short story.
To see how that plays out. Like not one that's a, long running story. Like think of like Conan, which now we're conflating sword and sorcery with the fantasy genre, because same genre, but different.
But that wouldn't be contemporary either.
There's modern sword and sorcery that's probably short, but like the sword and sorcery genre is the opposite of epic fantasy. It's shorter, it's focused on action, so that's why those are shorter. So I'm sure that I would imagine, because I haven't read any contemporary sword and sorcery stuff, but I would imagine that would still be shorter, and you could find short stories in that genre, but the subgenre. But the actual fantasy genre, how many short stories do you think they're like? I would like to read. I want to read. That's what we should do, is find like a lit magazine or something that publishes those and see what modern fantasies like in short story form.
I imagine they have to be out there somewhere, but I'm not familiar enough with that genre myself.
We've received submissions in the past, and I think we've even published a few, even though we generally don't take like the hard fantasy stuff. But we've had some short stories. I think we had some for Halloween, but I feel like we probably had more for like summer or spring, or just some random shit people submitted. But like hard fantasy stories, but they were all more like elf stuff and fairy fiction and stuff. It was like that other subgenre, like the fairy fiction and the Celtic stuff, and that's still not generally what I'm talking about, like Lord of the Rings style stuff, but not epic. Just like, there could be dragons and shit. But a good example, and I don't know the author, is when I was a kid, there was a book called Bane of Lord Caledon, I believe. And it was maybe 200 pages. I have it somewhere, an old paperback. And there was a whole bunch of those books at the time, not from that person, but just like, those kinds of books, short fantasy books, where it was almost like King Arthur stuff where, you know, we're going to go on a quest or whatever. I got to save the princess or the queen, or I got to fight a dragon. But it's you go on this adventure, you go through a whole story arc, and then you have a climax and an end, just like a normal story. But it was fantasy, like hard fantasy. Now, I could be completely wrong because, again, I don't read modern fantasy. But everything I've seen on the market that really sells is all series or these big doorstops. I don't notice a lot of, like, everybody wants to emulate Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, I feel like.
Yeah.
And whatever that one dragon series that was real popular, I think in the 90s or something. There's a lot of those kind of books too, but it's always like these big, giant fucking tombs. And I would like to read a fantasy series where I don't have to get super invested. I want to be taken away for a day or two of escapism and then throw it in the trash. Well, not in the trash, but, you know, throw it aside and read something else. I don't necessarily have to go into a whole world of lore to enjoy fantasy. So if there's fantasy authors out there who are listening, who write short stories and stuff, I would be interested to read. So send them our way, because I really am interested to see what modern short story fantasy would be like, or even, you know, novella length or novelettes. It's just, it's a genre that has fallen to the wayside in regard to having short fun fiction. I feel like everything has to be epic now. And same with a lot of sci-fi stuff. Yeah, you still have your Kurt Vonnegut style short sci-fi stories and novels and stuff, but there's a lot of series. And you think of like The Expanse. Those are girthy.
Oh yeah.
Those are pretty big books. And I like the Andy Weir stuff. Like we read those. Those are short sci-fi stories. And like I would say The Martian's borderline hard sci-fi.
Oh yeah.
If it's not complete hard sci-fi, because it's just written so fun that it kind of doesn't seem like it. But I guess there is a lot of hard sci-fi elements in that. And Artemis, which was still kind of hard sci-fi, but that was more of like
a little bit more loose.
Yeah, it was a little looser, but again, short. What was that? Like a couple 100 pages? Like it wasn't very long.
Yeah, I would say somewhere, both of those reports, somewhere between 250 to 300.
Yeah, they weren't very big. So it could be done like in a fun way, but a lot of times when I just peruse the aisles of Barnes & Noble, like I go to the sci-fi section, I'm just like, I can't get any of this stuff because these are fucking so big.
Well, that I actually those the first two books in that one series that I got, The Ninth Metal and The Unforgiven Garden by Benjamin Percy.
Yeah,
both of those are, I think one is just over like 200 and the other one might be like 250. So I'm looking forward to getting to those because like that shouldn't be, you know, too hard of a go-to. I'm really interested to see how his novel work is compared to like all of his comic stuff that I've read. So,
well, here's what I'm interested in, and I'm gonna go off topic pretty hard in a second. But before I do that, one of the things I've been thinking about when it comes to this, because I mentioned attention spans earlier, of people wanting shorter fiction just because, you know, they don't want to read as much. But you said that, well, a lot of people, and especially in regards to fantasy, they like diving into these big, giant books and just being lost in that world forever. They don't want to come back from it. So when you go to a publisher, and I would like to see, this is one question I can't ask Nicholas Obregon because he doesn't write in fantasy or a genre that would be applicable for this. Because he does like crime stuff.
Oh, could you imagine
the crime stuff?
Could you imagine his take on a fan?
That'd be fun.
He should write a short story fantasy just to see what.
I'll pass us off on to him if he's not listening. Hey, Spencer wants you to write a fantasy real quick.
Just you got nothing else to do, man.
He's writing like a book and he has a podcast. He's doing all kinds of stuff. He's busy. He can't do that. Anyway, but like crime, that's kind of like that's one of those genres that's still set in like specific parameters. So you have a good crime fiction, true crime story, any of that stuff should be about this length. Like you don't really have too much wiggle room. I mean, you can, but like the publishers, what they want is generally the same with that. But when it comes to fantasy, I'm wondering who's correct here. Do you go to a publisher or an agent and you're trying to sell your book and you're like, hey, I have this book. It's a one-off. It's 400 pages. Are they going to be like, all right, cool, we'll publish that? Or will they be like, actually, we would prefer it if it was a series, or we would prefer it if it was 800 pages and broken up into 2 books, or like what are the parameters for that? I feel like you're right in that regard, as they want the bigger books and they want the series because that's what's going to sell. And they want something they can sell to fucking Netflix or something.
Right.
And, they want a Witcher. They want something that will go on and on. Because Michael Moorcock did The Witcher before The Witcher was The Witcher. And guess what? Nobody bought his work, even though they've been trying to adapt it forever. Because they just found The Witcher and they're just fuck it. That's made for it.
We'll just do this instead.
We don't have to cobble any books together. It's a series. Everything's like I bitched many times before. Everything's got to be a series. And I don't think I'm a series guy. Even though I'm reading The Lord of the Rings, that's technically one book. That's not a series.
It was originally published as one book?
He wrote it as one book. It was published as 3 books, but he wrote it. That's why the story flows so well, because there's no recap. There's none of that bullshit. Like you get in a lot of serialized story, or, in book 3, they got to remind you what happened in book 1. No, Lord of the Rings is just 1, 2, 3. He wrote it as one big story, and then they published it separately, which is fine. I like it like that. So going into something like The Expanse, I don't know if I could do that. I want to read more of Walter Mosley's books because I like that, but I feel like crime's different. Maybe because they're shorter. I'm not sure what it is, but you go to crime noir. I feel like I can read a series of crime noir, and it's fine. But fantasy, I think it's just too deep of the world building. I don't know if I want to go that deep in a lot of stuff.
And I have a feeling with those Walter Mosleys, those the Easy Rollin books. I mean, you probably catch things if you read them in order, but you could probably read one.
It wouldn't matter.
3, or, they're all just cases most likely. So
well, that's like the Michael Moorcock stuff, because the Elric Melnibone stuff. It's like I said, that new collections I've been getting. They published them in the chronological order, not the publishing order, which is different. Which means when he wrote the books, much like the Conan stories, you can read them in any order. It doesn't matter. Like, if you read King Conan, but then I think that's the first one. But then,
that's the very first one.
When he's an old man, but then you go back to when he's a young guy. It doesn't matter. They're just fun stories. But when you read a lot of fantasy series, you can't read book 3 before you read book 2. Like, it wouldn't make sense. I don't know. I would like us to maybe in the future here, since we're so professional now, find a couple of agents that we can get on for separate episodes and just find maybe a fantasy agent, like up and coming agents or something too. If we can get an established agent, would be cool. But I think up and coming would be good to because they're just getting into the market, so they really have to know what publishers want now. Versus like established agents, they might just be able to sell books on their credentials. They're like, oh, this guy's been doing this forever. He knows what he's talking about. So we'll take a. But if you're new and you're trying to sell a book to a publisher, you kind of have to really be have your eye on what's fresh and what's new. What other genres do you think the length of the books has a big horror? I don't know why I almost forgot about horror. Horror almost is, and you being a Stephen King guy, you might know, horror is generally shorter novel sizes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's purposeful, as in a longer horror just eventually takes the reader out of it. I could see that.
Well, I think it's harder to
follow up on
to keep that tension and stuff. You know what I mean?
Horror is a good binge. Like if you're reading horror, that's like a binge reading. Like you usually just want to read the whole thing.
Well, you would know since you're a big horror movie guy. Like the horror movies that are shorter normally better than like a 3-hour horror movie.
To be honest, there's very few long horror movies I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of horror movies because I was thinking I guess the Dr. Sleep would count, right? But that was more fantasy almost. I mean, it was horror at the end. Yeah, thriller. Thriller and horror have mingled in a weird way where it's hard to tell them apart.
Yeah.
Especially in movie form, because there's a lot of stuff. It's this is a thriller, but then you watch it that was a fucking horror. What are you talking about? Thriller? You watch the movie Seven, that's like a detective thriller, but it's like, you sure this isn't horror? This is fucking gruesome. Speaking of, we talked about the Batman last week. There's some scenes in that where that could be like horror.
Yeah.
Because it's like a detective thriller, but some of that also is like, oh man, they could easily be turned into a horror if they just went a little harder into this stuff. But as far as long horror, I can't think of really too many outside of, I don't know. How long was The Shining? A couple hours. I don't know.
Probably, yeah, because what's-his-face was kind of...
I think the movies do the same thing. There's not too many long horror, and because I can't think of any off the top of the head, but I know I've watched longer horror movies, probably watched a few that hit the 3-hour mark or more, but those are all more atmospheric. They weren't so much, just like, serial killer. Like, I don't know. I've read a good bit of horror stuff, not generally modern horror, but most of the stuff I've read has been shorter too. Like Clive Barker is mostly short stories, and then The Hellbound Heart was like almost a novella. It was very short. Most of the Stephen King stuff I've read that was strictly horror was shorter. Like Carrie. I haven't read Pet Sematary yet, but I don't think that's too long.
No, that's about like an average, like a normal
size book.
Yeah.
The Shining wasn't overly long. Like Stephen King probably writes the longest horror of anybody that I've checked out, but
it's also not just
horror. Usually there's a lot of like magical elements in his stuff, so it could borderline be what's that other fucking subgenre of horror? Like with witches and stuff, like the magic aspects of it. Supernatural. More supernatural than horror. Because there's a difference there too, because you can have a supernatural book that's not scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
You could have a supernatural detective story.
Yes. But to wrap this up, because we've been fucking rambling a lot.
Jibber-jabbering.
No, a lot of gibbering. Like we've, what we did? We walked into the mountains of madness with our boy H.P. Lovecraft, and we became gibbering madmen because we saw the cosmic horror.
That's a guy who could have cut a few 100 words or 1,000 words.
You know what? Speaking of length, wasn't it weird that magazines back in the day wanted stories long like that? Because all of his stuff was published in magazines.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm sure like Mountains of Madness had to be serialized, right? That could not have been in one magazine because that's like a 250 page. Well, I have that big collection. It's hard to say, but that thing's fucking big.
Yeah.
Like I feel like for a short story, that's very long.
Well, maybe they didn't have things to publish, so they needed things to take up space.
I don't know. He probably imagine writing something that fucking dense, and then you get like 5 cents for it, 15 cents if you're lucky. I don't think he got paid very much. Maybe $100 if you were really up there. That'd be a lot of money actually back in the fucking 1920s.
Yeah.
What was I saying? I was talking about something, and then blah blah before I wanted to do things and gibbering, and then
you were talking about wrapping up, and then we got into the Lovecraft country.
Yeah, I don't remember. I wanted to talk about something. I think it is hard for me to discuss book length when most of the stuff I read is before the 1980s, like when it was published.
Yeah.
I just I don't know. We've been trying to read more contemporary fiction, and when we do, it's generally like The Hike, which is not that long. Like we haven't read,
And that's its own thing too. It's hard to put that into a genre.
Yeah, that would almost fall into like not necessarily RPG, but like a video game style. This is the closest I could get to it because that's not necessarily fantasy. It's not horror. I don't know.
I'd almost want to say urban fantasy, but it doesn't take place in
an urban setting. Yeah. Oh, I know what I wanted to fucking wrap up with. Our goal is after we get done on here, we should look up some fantasy magazines and see what because I know because I was submitting for a minute. So I know there's a couple and see what kind of stories they're publishing. That's not sword and sorcery because the ones I were looking up was sword and sorcery stuff. But see if there's actual just like fantasy. Maybe we could pick one up and read it for like a book of the month.
Yeah.
Magazine of the month, and it could be MOTH as an acronym. So anyway, this has been the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. Episode 100. It's not that big of a celebration because technically this is like our almost 300th episode or something. Like
with all the DBS episodes.
At least 200, right?
And the book clubs. And
yeah, there's got to be because the DBS episodes are like in the 60s or 70s now too. So we're definitely over 200. What'd you say? Almost 300, right? It shows on your phone, I think, on the app.
Yeah.
I want the analytics, damn it. I need those analytics.
We have 211 episodes.
Okay, so we're over 200. Not that much of a celebration at this point. When we hit 500 on just total, maybe we should just do an episode for that.
It's funny you say that. Colin McMahon of Pittsburgh Comics just recorded the 500th episode of his podcast yesterday.
Did he do anything special?
We had one of his retail friends, Jermaine, who runs Acme Comics in Greensburg, North Carolina.
Greensboro,
maybe something like that. I remember that it's in North Carolina.
Greensboro.
Lord Retail is on all the social medias if he's a real cool guy. if you're in that area, you should check out his store. But he was on. He like Skyped in.
Oh, okay.
And we talked and bullshitted with him and stuff. It was pretty cool.
Neato Skeeto, buddy. Anyway, if you should listen to the Pittsburgh Comics podcast, even on the Pittsburgh area, because they talk about comics, man.
Yeah.
If you want to check out more of our stuff, because we are still open, I guess, for the spring submissions. We have some stuff publishing here. Probably when this episode drops, already been published. But you got drunkenpenwriting.com. Dog's going crazy, so we got to hurry this up. At Twitter, you can follow us at drunkpenwriting, and Instagram and Facebook at drunkenpenwriting. And for the DPW podcast, I have been your host, Caleb James. And with me, as always, Spencer, the master of disaster, the ass blasters, the Moroccan love machine, the Peruvian pimp daddy, the Jamaican jerky boy,
the Armenian ass astronomer,
the Greek mystique, the Okinawa orgy organizer, the Moscow madman, the Chilean crossdresser, the Tijuana taco thief, the Hong Kong honky tonk, the Nigerian nightmare, the Bulgarian boogeyman, the Tasmanian terror, the Barbados booty bandit, the Demon Seed, the Turkish travesty, the Newcastle nasty man, the Louisiana lady lover, the Swedish sugar daddy, the Calcutta coochie captain, the Monterey midget, the Danish derelict, the Saskatchewan Sasquatch, the Minnesota Hmong merchant, the Macedonian monkey molester, the Barbados barracuda breeder, the Polynesian pimple popper, the bad boy of Baghdad, the Croatian crush, the wizard world wonder, bad boy of Botswana, the Overlook Ogler, the Manitoba Mauler, the Babbling Brute of Baghdad, the Cambodian Cornholer, the Miami Marmalade Marauder, the Nantucket Ninny, the Dallas Diddler, the French Fornicator, the Dunwich Demon, the Finnish Fiend, the Arkham Assassin, Columbus Crackhead Church, the Nashville Nutter, the Grecian Gladiator, the Cairo Cool Daddy, the Lithuanian Lobster Lover, the Mississippi Mud Maker, the Cantonese Kris Kringle, the Calabash Cuckold, the Stockholm Sticky Man, the Dublin Dirt Digger, the Texas Turkey Toucher, the Belgian Butter Bandit, the Brythunian Boogeyman, the Gotham Gooey Goon, the Nemedian Necromancer, the Burmese Bad Boy, the Shemitish Shyster, the Gunderman Gooch, the Atlantean Alchemist of Ass, the Detroit Dildo, the Uruguay Urinator, the Tallahassee Tallywhacker, the Allegheny Anal Anarchist, the Vancouver Vegan Violator, the Siberian Seat Sniffer, the Wisconsin Willie Wrencher, the Honduras Hungry Man, the Savage Sabertooth.